Hey, this is JT. Welcome to the garage. I'm excited to do this video for you because I hear some variation of this all the time. I'm in a calorie deficit, working out, doing all the right things, but I'm gaining weight. If that sounds familiar, I feel you. As someone that's been there myself, I totally get it. I used to be 50 pounds overweight at one point. In fact, I'll throw up a picture. You can check it out. You can see it right there. But one of the least motivating feelings in the world is seeing the scale not budge for weeks or even worse, go back up, all the while you're sure your diet and your training are on point. So I want to encourage you not to get discouraged or to be too hard on yourself. Your weight's only one metric, and while it matters, you may actually be making progress and just not focusing on the right markers of that progress. But I'll get to that later. First, it's important for us to recognize that all the available research to date suggests that in order to lose non-fluid or non-water weight, you must create a net deficit in dietary energy, aka a calorie deficit. In other words, the number of calories in the food you eat has to be lower than the number of calories that you burn every day. Now, same research also suggests that you cannot gain net body fat in an energy deficit. So rest assured, if you're in a deficit, you're not getting fatter. But just because you can't lose non-water body weight without being in a deficit, that doesn't mean it's impossible to gain weight in a deficit, especially short term. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into the top 3 reasons that you're gaining weight in a calorie deficit. But first, do me a favor, hit subscribe, click the notification bell, make sure you don't miss out on any of the awesome content I got coming up. Okay, now, reason number 1, you're gaining muscle mass faster than you're losing body fat. Now, this happens often when you're new to resistance exercise and you start lifting while you're dieting to lose weight. Now, you may have heard that there are about 3,500 calories in a pound of fat, but you may not know that there are only about 700 calories in a pound of muscle. Right, so fat is much more calorically dense than muscle is per pound. So that means it's possible to have a 500 calorie day deficit, which in theory would add up to 3,500 calories or 1 pound of fat weight lost over 7 days. But when you're lifting, you're concurrently building muscle, even in a calorie deficit, and especially when you're eating a high protein diet. In fact, a few weeks ago, I read a study that showed that subjects who were new to resistance training gained significant muscle mass even when in a deficit as steep as 40% of their maintenance calories. That's a huge deficit. 40% is huge. But here's why that's so important. Since fat contains 5 times more calories per pound than muscle, your body can use some of the calories from your deficit to fuel muscle growth. So while you can't turn fat into muscle, the fatty acids that you're releasing due to your calorie deficit can and do provide the energy needed to build new muscle tissue as part of the adaptations your body makes to your strength training. I want to stress this phenomenon is generally only applicable to you if you're fairly new to strength training or coming back from a long period of no strength training. So like this isn't going to work for me or somebody else who's been consistently strength training for a long time. Now there's definitely a limit to how much this can happen for you, but it's not uncommon for someone new to gain 3 to 5 pounds of muscle over a couple months, even in a deficit. So this can mask a decent amount of fat loss and stress you out, making you think that your weight's not going down, you must be doing something wrong when actually you're not. Now, the second way you can gain weight in a calorie deficit is by gaining something other than muscle. This is usually due to fluctuations in fluid or water weight. So what can cause these fluctuations? Well, a chronic state of hypohydration or not drinking enough water can. And it sounds counterintuitive, but research on the topic suggests that chronic underhydration is associated with difficulty in losing weight and the body retaining fluid. And researchers in the area note that not knowing the benefits of water drinking may be a factor in why people don't drink enough. Researchers also find that people that say they don't like the taste or have a need to urinate frequently influences their behavior and often leads to hypohydration. So if you're struggling to lose weight and you know you don't drink much water, consider upping your water intake and see if that makes a difference. Another thing that can impact this is normal variations in fluid retention due to hormonal fluctuations. This will impact women more than men, obviously. It's not uncommon to see weight fluctuate several pounds around a woman's menstrual cycle, so don't freak out if you see your weight go up at that time of the month as it comes around. There's a lot of medications that can cause fluid retention as well, so make sure you know the potential side effects of any meds you may be taking and identify if water retention is one of them. If so, this extra weight's likely to come off after you stop taking the meds. Now, the next thing that could be a problem is excessive sodium intake or large fluctuations in sodium. How much sodium you actually need can vary based on your activity levels and how much you sweat. But sodium plays a role in regulating fluid retention, and large swings in sodium intake can lead to holding additional water. So salt in your food to taste daily is likely not a problem, but very high amounts of sodium can be hidden in many foods. So I once knew a bodybuilder who was having problems with holding water. and wasn't looking as lean as he should have going into final week of prep. So I was thinking about it, and I told him to check his meat for sodium. And as it turns out, he was using chicken breast injected with a sodium solution. Now, most fast food and much restaurant food is also very high in sodium, and it's a big part of why you can eat one cheat meal from a fast food place and wake up 3 to 5 pounds heavier if you're not used to that much sodium. You didn't gain that much fat, you retained water. And food waste, don't forget that food itself has a weight to it, and on any given day that you eat more than normal, you're going to weigh a bit more than normal, again, because you have more food inside your body. All right, now the next thing that can lead to fluid retention is stress. This is a big one to consider when you're dieting. The stress is actually a good thing. We need some stress. Without applying stress to the body, we don't adapt, we don't get stronger. But too much stress can add up and lead to chronically elevated levels of cortisol. Now, it's important to remember cortisol, it gets a bad rap, but in and of itself, it's not bad. In fact, it's critical for life. But excessive chronic cortisol elevation carries with it a whole bunch of negative effects, one of which is excess fluid retention. And remember, when you're dieting, you're adding a source of stress to the body. You add exercise to that, and you're adding another source of stress to the body. Getting less sleep because you're waking up early to hit the gym, boom, more stress. Then you add to all that the stresses of modern life, and you may very well have high cortisol that can work to sabotage your fat loss efforts. And this can be tricky because when people hit a plateau, their response is often to do even more cardio, which of course increases stress and cortisol even more. And what they actually need to do is work on sleep and balancing exercise with rest and recovery. I've seen people in this situation take like a week off of hard workouts and just go for walks, work on sleeping better, de-stressing, and then we'll end up seeing their weight come down a few pounds. And remember, if you're going to train like an athlete, you have to fuel yourself like one and recover like one as well. Now, the third reason that you may be gaining weight in a calorie deficit is that you aren't actually in a deficit. Now, I'm not suggesting you don't know how to track your food, but studies do show that people are commonly off by as much as 50% when it comes to accurately estimating their caloric intake. The 50% is huge, right? But it is what it is, and studies find that pretty consistently. Now, let's assume you are not one of those people, okay? The first thing we need to do is figure out where you got your current calorie intake from. How do you know that that level is actually creating a deficit? So I see a lot of confusion in this area because people forget that biology is highly variable, and now all these metabolic rate calculators are providing estimates, not exact figures. So take like a basal metabolic rate or BMR calculator. You can find these calculators online as part of the diet tracking apps like MyFitnessPal is one that I've used in the past. So these types of calculators use an equation to reach an estimate of your BMR based on your age, weight, height, sex, activity level, but it's just an estimate. And so while it may be fairly accurate most of the time, your individual BMR can vary by as much as 20%. So MyFitnessPal or another BMR calculator may be telling you your BMR is 2,000 calories, but your actual BMR could be as low as say 1,400 or 1,500 calories. So create a 1,500 calorie diet to give you a 500 calorie deficit based on you thinking your BMR is 2,000 calories. What you're actually left with is eating maintenance or even a slight surplus of 100 calories. Now, that's not to say tracking is bad or estimating is bad. Those things serve to give you a rough idea of where to start, and then you need to adjust from there based on your results over time. Now, another way you may not be in a deficit is that your BMR actually goes down over time as you lose weight. Your current body weight's a primary regulator of your metabolic rate. So let's say you started dieting with like 1,500 calories and you lose 20 pounds over 3 months, and then boom, you hit a plateau. The 20 pounds you lost will have resulted in a reduction of your metabolic rate. So the exact diet or macros that worked when you started losing weight may not work to keep you losing weight. So it's important to remember you've got to adjust your diet over time. Now, what about if you get your calorie burned estimates from a fitness tracker like an Apple Watch or a Fitbit? Well, studies looking at how accurately those devices measure energy expenditure find that they're off by an average of 15 to 20%. And that's for the more accurate devices like Apple Watch and full-featured Fitbits. This can easily lead to a difference of hundreds of calories per day, and that can quickly negate what you thought was a deficit. Now, that doesn't mean that Fitbit's bad or Apple Watches are bad. I have an Apple Watch. I really like it. I just don't use it for calorie burned estimations. Okay, so what's the take-home message in all of this? So the message is weight loss is never linear. It's more like the peaks of a gradually descending mountain range, okay? Even if you do all the right stuff and you're losing fat over time, you may be gaining muscle too, or retaining fluid. And those things can hide the fact that you are still losing weight and lead you to being discouraged and giving up. That's why I suggest don't just look at weight as how you track your progress, but look at your body composition also. And you can do that by using a cloth tape measure, which is what I've done in the past. And what you do is you measure the circumference of your upper arm, your waist, the narrowest part, your upper legs. You can do your chest. But the trick is making sure you measure the same spot each time. You also want to pay attention to how your clothes are fitting. So it's common to not see the scale move for a few weeks, but you see your measurements and your body composition improve at the same time. And often that's actually better than seeing the scale come down. Because if your inches show that you've lost fat, yet the scale hasn't gone down, that's a pretty good indicator that you've also gained muscle mass. So you've lost body fat, displaced with muscle, scale doesn't change, but your body composition improved. And gaining muscle is a great way to help increase your BMR and slow down the metabolic adaptation that happens in response to diet. And that's partly because the more muscle you carry, the more calories you burn per day. Now that doesn't mean the scale is bad. It's a good idea to measure your weight frequently and then record the numbers and look at the average over time. This way you're not putting too much stock in one reading or a few days worth of readings in case they're high due to water retention. Instead, you're focusing on the longer term trend in weight loss. And if you're struggling to troubleshoot what's going wrong, let me know in the comments below and I'll do my best to help you troubleshoot and figure it out.